we shouldn't be casual about it, because that could save us. I remember His Holiness Krishna Swami would say this in a similar way. He said, we shouldn't be casual about what a devotee tells us, because whatever they say could save us from a casualty. He used to say that. It's actually a very deep statement. So let's chant Jai Radha Madhava together responsibly. Jai Radha Madhava, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada ki. ISKCON Samstapakacharya Srila Prabhupada ki. Ananda Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki. Shri Shri Radha Radhananda ki. Sriman Mahaprabhu ki. Shri Giriraj Govardhan Lal ki. Gaur Premanande. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. We will read from the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, chapter 2, Praise by the Demigods, and we will read text 31. Swayam Samatirya Sadushtaram Vyaman Bhavarnamabhima Madha Prasolidham Bhavat Padapurvanavamatrate Nidhaya Yata Saranugraho Bhavan Swayam Samatirya Sadushtaram Vyaman Bhavarnamabhima Madha Prasolidham Bhavat Padapurvanavamatrate Nidhaya Yata Saranugraho Bhavan. Please repeat. Swayam, personally. Samatirya, perfectly crossing. Sudustaram, which is very difficult to cross. Dyuman, O Lord, who appear exactly like the sun, illuminating the darkness of this world of ignorance. Bhavavarnavam, the ocean of nations. Bhimam, which is extremely fierce. Adhabrasoridha, devotees who are incessantly friendly to the fallen souls. Bhavat Padaham Varuham, your lotus feet. Navam, the boat for crossing. Atra, in this world. Te, they, the Vaishnavas. Nidhaya, leaving behind. Yata, on to the ultimate destination. Vaikuntha, Sat Anugraha, who are always kind and merciful to the devotees. Bhavan, you. Translation by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. O Lord, who resemble the shining sun, you are always ready to fulfill the desire of your devotee, and therefore you are known as a desired tree, Vanchakalpataru. When acharyas completely take shelter under your lotus feet, in order to cross the fierce ocean of nations, they leave behind on earth the method by which they cross. And because you are very merciful to your other devotees, you accept this method to help them. You may repeat. O Lord, who resemble the shining sun, you are always ready to fulfill the desire of your devotees. the method by which they cross. And because you are very merciful to your other devotees, you accept this method to help them. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. This statement reveals how the merciful acharyas and the merciful Supreme Personality of Godhead together help the serious devotee who wants to return home back to Godhead. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, in his teachings to Srila Rupa Goswami, said, Brahmanda Brahmite Kona Bhagyavan Jiva Guru Krishna Prasade Aya Bhakti Lata Bija. Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Lila, 19:151. One can achieve the seed of Bhakti Lata, devotional service, by the mercy of Guru and Krishna. The duty of the Guru is to find the means according to the time, the circumstances, and the candidate by which one can be induced to render devotional service, which Krishna accepts from a candidate who wants to be successful in going back home, back to Godhead. After wandering throughout the universe, a fortunate person within this material world seeks shelter of such a guru or acharya who trains the devotee in the suitable ways to render service according to the circumstances, so the Supreme Personality of Godhead will accept the service. This makes it easier for the candidate to reach the ultimate destination. The acharya's duty, therefore, is to find the means by which devotees may render service according to references on Shastra. Rupa Goswami, for example, in order to help subsequent devotees, published such devotional books as Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Thus, it is the duty of the acharya to publish books that will help future candidates take up the method of service and become eligible to return home back to Godhead by the mercy of the Lord. In our Krishna consciousness movement, this same path is being prescribed and followed. Thus, the devotees have been advised to refrain from 4 sinful activities: illicit sex, intoxication, meat eating, and gambling, and to chant 16 rounds a day. These are bona fide instructions. Because in the Western countries, constant chanting is not possible, one should not artificially imitate Haridas Thakur, but should follow this method. Krishna will accept a devotee who strictly follows the regulative principles and the method prescribed in the various books and literatures published by the authorities. The acharya gives a suitable method for crossing the ocean of nations by accepting the boat of the Lord's lotus feet. And if this method is strictly followed, the followers will ultimately reach the destination by this boat. This method is called Acharya Sampradaya. It is therefore said, Sampradaya Vihinaye Mantrashte Nishvala Mata Padma Purana. The Acharya Sampradaya is strictly bona fide. Therefore, one must accept the Acharya Sampradaya. Otherwise, one's endeavor will be futile. Srila Narottam Das Thakur therefore sings, Tangare Charana Sevi Bhakti Samevas Janane Janane Hoy E Abhilaj. One must worship the lotus feet of the Acharya and live within the society of devotees. Then one's endeavor to cross over nations will surely be successful. what that is based on. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, there is the account of Arjuna, who was deeply lamenting the departure of Krishna. But very nicely it's mentioned how he found shelter and solace by remembering the instructions of the Lord. And he had so many instructions. Most significant of the instructions that he received from Krishna we find in the Bhagavad Gita. In Srila Prabhupada's physical presence, when we hear his lectures and read his books, we find that Prabhupada also repeatedly emphasized this point, that it is more important to have the association with the instructions of the spiritual master than it is with the physical presence of the spiritual master. And because Srila Prabhupada is Acharya, and the word used in the text is Acharya, as Prabhupada translates, we find that Prabhupada's emphasis, this repetitive emphasis, was made even more potent. Because he taught that same instruction by his personal example. And that is the meaning of Acharya, one who teaches by personal example. In Srila Prabhupada's activities, we never find any contradiction between what he said and how he acted. Of course, you do find people who try to find contradiction. And that's really the nature of material mentality. Why do they try to find contradiction? Because then they have an excuse not to surrender. Oh, just see. There's some inconsistency there. I'm not going to surrender. We remember one very wonderful devotee from Bombay who visited here once. I think it was at a Lastani festival, and he just happened to walk in. A very close associate of Srila Prabhupada, Srinathji Das, who was he passed away last year, the year before, I think. He was a very successful industrialist in Mumbai. And he had a lot of association with Srila Prabhupada. Actually, Srinathji Prabhu, then he was called Nathji Desai, came from a Mayavad school. He was following a certain spiritual group that was basically Mayavad. But somehow he was attracted to Srila Prabhupada. And he would come very often to meet Srila Prabhupada. And in his recorded interviews on his memories with Srila Prabhupada, he disclosed that actually he was a very expert fault finder. Because when he's dealing with people, he would look for their faults and their weak points and exploit those weak points. And he said he tried really, really hard to find flaws in what Prabhupada was saying and comparing it to what his actions were. And he tried really hard, but he just couldn't find any. And he realized that Srila Prabhupada was really the perfect example of everything he preached, everything he spoke about. Of course, we know that one of the symptoms, the qualities of Kali Yuga is hypocrisy, isn't it? It's what did it say? Kali Yuga is the age of quarrel and hypocrisy. So people are always finding disagreement with each another because their personal sense gratification is being curtailed. And they always are looking for opportunities never to surrender because they want to be in charge. They want to be better than the person who apparently is in charge. And ultimately that mood goes all the way up to their view of or their perception of the Supreme Lord. So because of this prevalent hypocrisy that permeates Kali Yuga, it is very difficult for people to surrender. Very, very difficult. Why? Because everywhere you look in this material world, you'll find hypocrisy. Isn't it? Even in this temple room, you look around, you'll find hypocrisy in me, you'll find hypocrisy in others, you'll find hypocrisy at the altar. one of the emblems, the hallmarks of his potency, was that he defeated hypocrisy. He defeated hypocrisy. What we saw is what we got from Srila Prabhupada. There was no difference between Prabhupada speaking in public and Prabhupada behind closed doors. You read all the accounts, you hear all the accounts about Srila Prabhupada, it comes to this one person, one point. Prabhupada was integrity personified. He my heart. You know, why do I need a guru? I can just directly interact with God. So this devotee was mentioning this point in the mood that let's hear what Prabhupada would say to defeat this type of misunderstanding of this person who's conditioned. But he didn't accept how Prabhupada would react. Next. If you hear the tape, you'll see Prabhupada just laid into this poor devotee. And he raised his voice and he said, "So did you defeat him? What did you say? Did you defeat him?" And before the devotee could even answer, Prabhupada just went into him. And he roared at this devotee. The problem is you are not reading my books. You are not reading my books. Why didn't you defeat him? This you can see Prabhupada, it was a very sensitive point to Srila Prabhupada. This Mayavadi impersonal tendency to disregard the position of the spiritual master in taking us back home, back to Godhead. It is a very, very insidious or sneaky tactic Maya uses to put a doubt in the consciousness of the practitioner. You don't need spiritual master. You have direct connection with the Guru. Prabhupada is very, very concerned that this must infiltrate. Why didn't you defeat him? And he asked the devotee, do you know what it says in my books? What does Krishna say? Did you tell him who Krishna speaks to? This person is thinking he can speak directly to God. But who does Krishna speak to? Tesham sadata yuktanam bhajatam priti purvakam tadani buddhi yogamtam yenamam upayati. Prabhupada says, Krishna speaks to who? To those persons who completely dedicated themselves to him. Who are always thinking of him, who are always worshipping. Krishna doesn't speak to just any Tom, Dick, and Harry. I don't know what the names in Chatsworth would be, but we can make it up. Maybe Tom, Dick, and Harry too. Doesn't just speak to anyone. He speaks to that person who has completely dedicated their lives to his service, to his worship, who constantly thinks of him. And what does he do to that person? He gives them the understanding by which they can come to him. He gives them. And then he said, Tadvedi Pranipadena. And then he said, you are such a nonsense. Why didn't you defeat him? So Srila Prabhupada was very, very angry about this point. Very, very angry. So essentially, Prabhupada, he really wanted all of us, his followers, to deeply understand philosophically that this is a major concoction in Kali Yuga. That people like to support their position, that you really don't need a spiritual master. You really don't even need the process of bhakti the spiritual master provides. And in today's context, even within a spiritual institution, you find this Prabhupada is, in every respect, so unassailable. He's so unassailable that they even make him out to be God-like even. That yes, you don't need Guru, you just need God. You don't need anyone else, you just need Prabhupada. Which is a similar concoction. And they'll find all sorts of opportunities, or all sorts of evidences of hypocrisy to support their point. Actually, only Prabhupada. And that's true, only Prabhupada. But only Prabhupada with those devotees who are only following him. Only Prabhupada is incomplete. Now, somebody may take an excerpt of this talk and say, just see, this heretic, he's saying only Prabhupada is incomplete. And I'll say it again, only Prabhupada is incomplete. Because Prabhupada doesn't consider himself only. Prabhupada is together with his sincere followers who are only following him. That's what makes Prabhupada complete. Just like only Krishna is not complete. Like Srila Prabhupada never liked paintings of Krishna alone. Right? Never liked paintings of Krishna alone. He wanted Krishna to be depicted with his loving devotees. Similarly, Prabhupada would never appreciate being alone. Being alone. Sometimes you get some traditionalists who They were born in degraded conditions in the West, in the Bowery. Someone once said the Bowery is like the armpit of the world. It's like a horrible place. And Prabhupada's great devotees, disciples appear all over in places like this, born in situations where there was breaking of all the regulative principles. If there was a fifth regulative principle, it was broken. This is where they were born. So a dog can be created. These people, look at their samskaras. They're coming from such challenged backgrounds. How can we ever hope to like look upon them as somebody who can share Prabhupada with me, who can guide Prabhupada? And Prabhupada answered the question directly. Bhavananda Prabhu actually recounts once in Prabhupada's presence, he was there, and Prabhupada mentioned that actually all of you American boys and girls, you were sent to me by my Guru Maharaj to assist me in this mission of Mahaprabhu. And he mentioned, but Prabhupada, we have come from such degraded situations. And Prabhupada said, no, that is just external. That is external. And actually, if one thinks about it even deeper, look how glorious this potency of bhakti is. How glorious Prabhupada's potency is. That no matter where someone can come from, by chanting Hare Krishna and following the Acharya, the process the Acharya has given, one can be completely purified. Completely purified. Yes, in this Kali Yuga, with all its onslaughts of Maya and challenging situations, obstacles, there is bound to be many, many casualties along the way. This is a war that Srila Prabhupada has waged against Maya. And in a war, what will happen? There will be casualties. Some soldiers will fall down by the wayside, and that happens. But still, the war must be fought. Just because one soldier has fallen down, you can't look at another soldier who's continuing fighting and saying, oh, you also killed. He's got his gun in his hand, he's trudging along and fighting against the enemy. So similarly, in Srila Prabhupada's onslaught against Maya, defeating Maya, there are casualties. Sometimes we also have our momentary casualties, right? We slip and we fall and we get up again with the help of our fellow soldier, our fellow devotee. But that shouldn't deter us from the fight against Maya. From leaving, it's like, let me become a mercenary. I'll leave the army and I'll go on my own and do it. No. Srila Prabhupada is the Senapati Bhakta of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mission. If you want to be saved against Maya, stay under his shelter and the process that he has given us. So yeah, the text and Prabhupada's commentary, he's clearly pointing out that the Acharya is that person who makes our path of getting in contact with Krishna easier. Actually, it's not just easier. There's no other way but to follow the Acharya, because that's how Krishna designed it. But one thing we find with Srila Prabhupada, yes, according to time, place, and circumstance, Kala, Desha, and Bhakta, some adjustments would be made. A tweak here, a tweak there. But never will the Acharya, never the Srila Prabhupada, ever adjust or make any compromise on the essence of the process. What is the essence of the bhakti process? Is to please Krishna. It's not to please any other situation, any other entity, but to please Krishna. Of course, Krishna includes his devotees. Is to please Krishna. Is to surrender to Krishna. So to surrender to Krishna and to please Krishna is the essence of the process of bhakti. And that can never be tampered with. Can never be tampered with. This is a very significant point. It's one that Srila Prabhupada very, very carefully stuck by in his preaching in Krishna consciousness all throughout the world. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he wrote a series of essays called Bhaktya Loka, based on the verses of Rupa Goswami in the Upadeshamrita. And in one essay on Tat Tat Karma Pravartanat, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur writes, I'll just read this quickly now. And when we read and discuss this quote, you'll clearly see how Srila Prabhupada very wonderfully embodied the mission of the previous acharyas. He was so in sync, shoulder to shoulder with each of the previous acharyas. Like I said, he made some adjustments, but he never compromised on the principle of surrender and on the principle of surrendering to Krishna and pleasing Krishna. So this is a quote from that essay that Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur wrote. He writes, quote, "After pleasing the Guru by serving him without duplicity, one should receive from him both the instructions of the absolute truth and initiation into the chanting of the holy names of the Lord. After receiving initiation and instructions from a bona fide Guru, a fortunate disciple should follow the path of the previous sadhus." Now listen to this carefully. "Those who are proud, who neglect the our time, place, and circumstance, at a time most relevant for us, is Srila Prabhupada. And we follow what he did. And we do not get distracted by absolutely anything else. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur continues. Maintaining this type of determination and being compassionate to all living entities while always chanting the holy name of Krishna is the path of devotional service exhibited by the previous Mahajans. So this is how we eat. And we get tushti, pushti, shadapaya. We get satisfaction, we get nourishment, and we get relief from hunger. What are the three things we do? We maintain determination to follow this path. And second, Shishi Radharana. So first we maintain determination. Second, we Second, we show compassion to the living entities. And third, we chant incessantly. This is how we eat. This is the process of devotional service given by the acharyas. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, a path cannot be manufactured. Whatever path have previously been established should be accepted by the sadhus. Those who are proud and want fame try vigorously to discover new paths. Those who have good fortune from past lives give up pride and respect the established path. But those who are unfortunate promenade on a new path and thus cheat the world. So this is very important. Don't develop new things. Just follow very closely what Prabhupada has given. And this is how we established the ISKCON movement. He did not establish something different from the previous acharyas. Yes, some adjustments have been made according to the current context. But the essence of surrendering to Krishna and pleasing Krishna was never ever tampered with. And you may notice, if one is aware of how things develop in society, even in a spiritual society like ISKCON, sometimes we find that in the face of some social or political or some grouping type of pressure, there determine whether something will be pleasing to Krishna? Go to this verse from Bhakti Rasamrita. The definition of what pleases Krishna. This is important. Actually, Sanatana Goswami says something very startling in the prayer part of the Bhagavad. He says that he considers any action, no matter how pious it may be, any activity that is not in line with pure devotional service, he considers it to be papa or sin. Anything separate from pure devotional service to Krishna. What is it? It is sin. Now, what type of other meaning are we going to screw out of this? It is so clear. We don't have to turn it on its head and look at it from another angle. Let's consider, what if we do this? What if we do that? No. Just follow it, and it will be made easy for us. It will be made easy. But the more we contaminate it with our mundane perceptions, being influenced by hypocrisy and prakrita, sahajism, we will complicate the whole thing very, very, very much. I'll just conclude by further establishing why this process is easy. Why is it easy? We know this pastime from the Mahabharata. Well, actually, just before the whole battle of Kurukshetra took place, Krishna, we know, he speaks to Arjuna. And in the 9th chapter of speaking to Arjuna in Bhagavad Gita, what does Krishna say? What verse is it? 9:31. Kaunteya pratijanihi name bhakta pranashyati. What does he tell Arjuna? What does he tell Arjuna? To do something. To stand up and say something. Very, very how does he want Arjuna to say something? Boldly. Kaunteya pratijanihi. And what must he declare boldly? Arjuna, tell everyone here and for all time to come that my devotee will never perish. He makes this very strong statement. So one may wonder, but why doesn't Krishna just say it himself? Because Krishna, we know, sometimes he doesn't really follow through on what he says. We see that in Vrindavan, his Braj Leela. Very often he says one thing, doesn't happen. So you can't place too much of faith in Krishna. Now one may think, you're asking us to surrender to this Krishna and please this Krishna, but you can't even take seriously what he says. He just undoes whatever you said in your class now. You can't take this person seriously. But why can't Krishna sometimes keep his word? Because more important than keeping his word, to Krishna, more important than keeping his word is to keep the word of his devotee. Therefore he tells Arjuna, Kaunteya pratijanihi name bhakta pranashyati. Declare it boldly that my devotee will never perish. And the perfect example of this is what happens a few days later after this exchange of Bhagavad Gita and the battle of Kurukshetra. Actually, before I mention that pastime, I'm sure many of you know the pastime, but one of the important reasons, or the important reason why Krishna sometimes doesn't keep his word, like I just mentioned, is actually in line with what we call the emperor of all his qualities. That Krishna lives for his devotees' sake. That if his devotees say something, Krishna will do anything, even be framed or even be accused as a liar, if it means to keep his devotees' word. So that he makes Arjuna make a statement. And a few days later, we find Bhishmadev. He's being insulted and accused by his grandson Duryodhana that he's actually partial to the Pandavas and he's not fighting strongly enough. He actually wants the Pandavas to win. So then, frustrated by all these accusations of Duryodhana, Bhishmadev tells him, okay, here are 5 arrows. And he chants mantras to them, he invests them with all his potency and says, with these 5 arrows, I will kill the 5 Pandavas tomorrow in battle. And then some discussion goes on. of pinning to it. Now he's saying whatever you want. But the Kshatriya spirit, of course, Arjuna could have just stopped so much of killing just by saying, yes, let's just do it. you know. But knowing the Kshatriya spirit and the purpose of Krishna, all those people had to be killed. So anyway, coming to the point, Arjuna then requested those 5 arrows. And Duryodhana was stunned. Just see Krishna. He's so intelligent and so crafty. And hesitatingly he gave it. And the next we want to go somewhere.